Hi guitarlings, this is Gray at Hub Guitar. Today we're going to learn the Celtic tune, The Swallow's Tail, arranged for solo fingerstyle guitar. A couple things before we start. First of all, we're going to do standard tuning. A lot of the tunes in the Celtic category are in altered tunings, so this would be a good place to start if you don't want to fuss around with altered tunings, but you'd like to learn a tune for Celtic guitar. I'm going to play this with the capo on the 2nd fret, but that's optional and I'll leave that up to you. This tune is in 4/4 time, so you want to hear the quarter note like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. You also need to hear the 8th note, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you also need to hear 8th note triplets, which would be 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. So a mixture of those might sound like this, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. So you want to hear all of those subdivisions against the quarter note in order to be able to play them in this tune. Alright, so we're going to start out with a pickup measure. That's just the 3rd fret of the 1st string and the 2nd fret of the same string. And then we're going to go straight to this A minor chord. So if it helps you, you can think of a full A minor chord, but you don't need to do anything on the 4th string because that's not involved. Beat 2 is a triplet, so it's like 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Da, 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 da. So the rest of measure 1 is all based around the A minor idea, except for that 1st fret of the 2nd string to the open string, which you can do as a pluck or as a pull off. It's up to your interpretation. In measure 2, we're going to slide our index finger up to the 5th fret of the 3rd string and play that with the open 5th string. And then notice that I'm holding down the 7th fret with my 3rd finger while reaching towards the 2nd string with my index finger. That lets some of those notes blend together. So I use my index finger, middle finger, pinky, and then I play the open E against that. After I play the open E, I step back to the 3rd string with my 3rd finger and play the open B. So my goal is to maximize the number of notes that are ringing at the same time. So after I play a note, I'm careful not to disturb it. On the 3rd measure, we go to a G chord and a quarter note. Da, 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 da. So you could just take your middle finger, put that on the 3rd fret of the big string for your G, and then you pluck around the G. You do have to put another finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and then lift it back off. Measure 4 builds off of the G chord as well, following through with a quarter note. If you want to try to get the bass to sustain through that measure, you'd have to think carefully about your fingering there. Maybe you would put your 2nd finger on the bass, and then put your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, open E, 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the E string, and then 3rd finger on the 3rd fret. Hopefully you can keep that bass sustaining the whole time. But it's okay if you have to give up a little bit in the interest of playing a smooth passage. Now we're going to the next line. Measure 5 is pretty much the same as measure 1, and measure 6 is the same as measure 2. Measure 7 and 8 use a kind of a cascading kind of effect, which sort of imitates the sound of the harp. So the melody is traveling from higher strings to lower strings. And then it's interspersed with open ringing strings. And those open strings ringing along with the fretted notes create an interesting harp-like effect. use your index finger on the 5th fret of the high E string, 3rd and 4th fingers on fret 7 and 8 of the next string, followed by an open E. Notice that I'm still holding down the 8th fret. And then I'm going to put a finger on the 7th fret of the 3rd string, followed by an open 2nd string. And then I'm going to get my index finger onto the 5th fret of the 4th string. So it's index finger, ring finger, pinky finger, open, ring finger, open, index finger, open. That's probably the best fingering to keep that effect going. Then you've got to jump back to open position and play off of that A minor chord from measure 8. So now we've got a pickup before we get to measure 9, and that's going to be at the 5th fret of the 3rd string to the 7th fret. Before I do that, I like to lay down my half bar across the 5th frets of strings 1, 2, and 3, and I use that to play measure 9. So every note on the 5th fret of measure 9 should be coming from that bar. So I start with my half bar and I pluck string 5 open, as well as the 5th frets of strings 2 and 3, and then followed by the 1st string twice. Then I get my pinky to the 8th fret, I play the 5th of the 1st string off my bar again, ring finger to the 7th fret, back to the bar, and pinky back to 8. For measure 10, you can use that bar again for the 5th fret, but then you've got to let go towards the end to get your open E, and then you go to the 7th fret of the 3rd string and open B. Measures 11 and 12 are both similar to what we've played before. And that brings us to measure 13. Pretty much the same as measure 9. At the end of measure 14, we've got to jump back to the open position. That's the 2nd and 3rd fret. And then we get to measure 15 and 16 to end the piece. Let's break measure 15 down into 2 pieces. The first piece is this complicated and fancy little slur that we've got in there. So we'll put our pinky finger on the 5th fret of the 1st string and play that with the open 5th string, pull off to the 3rd fret, pull off to the 2nd fret, pull off to the open string, and hammer back to the 3rd fret. So that's really worth sitting there and shedding through. There are a lot of specialized techniques that it may not always feel is worth the practice, but when it comes to slurs that use hammer-ons and pull-offs, I think it's almost always worth the practice because those are used in every style. So just practice that a bunch of times. You can probably simplify it a little bit if you're having trouble with that. You could just do 5, 2, 3, open, and do it as quarter notes. So don't be afraid to explore and simplify a little bit, but as written, it's 5, 3, 2, open, 3. The way that I thought would be best would be to do a thumb over on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, index finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, middle finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string, and ring finger on the 5th fret of the 4th string. And then just lift up to get that open string. If you're not careful, you're going to get some buzz when you do that thumb over. So you've got to really reach your thumb over. Another way you can do it is you can bar across the 3rd fret. And you can use your 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string, and you can use your ring finger on the 5th fret of the 4th string. But you'll have to lift that bar up to get to the last note, which is an open string. And then we're going to jump to the last measure, open A and 2nd fret of the 3rd string, 1st fret of the 2nd string, open 2nd string, open 3rd string, and 2nd fret of the 3rd string. So really measure 15 is the trickiest. So try both the thumb over and the bar and see which one works best for you. Alright, that's it for the Swallow's Tail. I hope you enjoyed playing it, and thanks for watching.